2022 has been a big year for comic book properties. In fact, I've seen 16 things that are considered a comic book property. So let's dive in and rank each and every one of them from worst to best. And I'll make sure to put them down below in the description. So if you want to rank these ones as well, feel free to. If you've seen other things that maybe I missed that were a part of a comic book property, let me know down below and put them in your ranking as well. But other than that, hit that like and subscribe button and let's dive into this. My number 16 in last place is Morbius. This movie is fucking trash. I have nothing more really to say about this movie other than the fact that I hated it. I've seen this movie 3 times, and each time I just absolutely wanted to beat my head into a wall. And the fact that I didn't like this movie as watching it, I get more pissed off when I stay to watch the end credit scenes, because the end credit scenes are absolutely dismissive and completely retcon a lot of stuff that they say about in No Way Home when it comes down to the spell. It is absolutely ludicrous. None of it makes sense. It's stupid. Morbius is dumb. It doesn't make sense why he would want to team up with Vulture, and I absolutely hated how they made this movie. It is not fun. It is stupid, and I can't express it enough. Like, I hate ranting and shitting on a movie, but as much as I thought Jared Leto and Matt Smith, I had fun with their 2 characters overall, I look back at this movie and I'm just like, that was a fucking waste of time, and I would have rather just Sony put more money into a different Spider-Man character to get a spin-off. Or, hell, how have we still not had a Miles Morales live action yet? Like, there's so many Spider-Man characters that could have gotten a spin-off, but of course they gave it to Morbius. My rant is over. At my number 15 is DC League of Super Pets. This is way far above Morbius. Morbius is down here, DC League Super Pets is up here. And that's kind of like just climbing the tower. I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was fun, funny, and kind of generic when it comes down to an animated movie, but I had fun with the pets of the super pets and everything like that, getting superpowers. I mean, this is a movie for kids. There's nothing much more to say. Now, my number 14 is She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. I've been talking about the show for a while now, so I'm going to keep this one a little bit short. I liked it, but I didn't love it. I think it really falters and falls in what the execution of the show is supposed to be. A law comedy show taking place with Jennifer Walters. And there's not a lot of law in this. There's some humor, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and Jennifer Walters as a character I didn't fully come to love. I love Tatiana Maslany as the character, but once I've seen the entire crux of the show, while I love the last 2 episodes, there's a lot of episodes before that just felt like filler and crap and boring, and it didn't really add anything else, and it became very repetitive in what Jennifer Walters' character was supposed to be and never moving her up in that arc. I love Charlie Cox's Daredevil. I think they have great chemistry. I love when she actually fully broke down the 4th wall. I thought that was hilarious, even though if it kind of stepped back on certain things within the writing room. But in general, I enjoyed She-Hulk for what it is, and I will just leave it at that. Even if I did think that this show could have been way better. Oh, my number 13 and up, everything from here, I thoroughly enjoyed. Like, none of these I would even consider bad by any means, because at my number 13 is Miss Marvel. I think Iman's performance as Marvel is so good. I cannot wait to see her. She is the reason that I am more excited to see Captain Marvel 2 now, and I can't wait because I can't wait to see her banter with her. But also leading into this, the heart of this is the family and friendship story in here. I did not expect to get that in this movie. I was kind of actually surprised to see that we are getting this in this movie. And one of the biggest pros to it all is that is the best part about this show, and I love that it's framed as a coming of age story with a lot of wit, a lot of humor, and a lot of just relatability, because if you're a geek for Marvel stuff, well, so is the main character. The only thing with this is this show needed more episodes. I'm so tired of Marvel doing this bullshit 6-episode thing. You're gonna hear that a lot through a lot of these different things that I'm about to talk about, but that's definitely one of the holdbacks for it all. Out my number 12 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I wanted to love this. This was my most anticipated comic book thing for this year besides the Batman, and I could not be more excited for this series. You get freaking Sam Raimi coming in to direct this, one of the best and one of my favorite horror directors of all time. The horror tones for Doctor Strange works. Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch works. The brutality and a lot of the scariness of it works. Benedict Cumberbatch is great in the role. America Chavez could have been written a little bit better. She's really much just a MacGuffin for the entire story. But for me, this movie does not work in 2 ways. One, as more of a character study and touching on for Doctor Strange, as well as going through the multiverse. It's not really the Multiverse of Madness. It's like the sometimes Multiverse of Madness. I think there's a lot more that they could have executed within this concept. I'm not talking about adding in a ton of cameos, but I'm talking about just within the storytelling devices that they had. A lot they didn't explore, and there's a lot more that I wanted them to do so, as well as just the pacing of this. This movie should have been at least 20 more minutes longer. Even if maybe that would have hurt and slowed down the movie a little bit more, what I wanted from those 20 minutes is just more character exploration, and I think that's one of the things that this movie was missing. Now, at my number 11, we have the Guardians of the Galaxy The Holiday Special, which just came out, and this was just such a joyous event. Like, if you love Christmas and you love the holidays, this is exactly what it is, and it gives you that great reminder of why you love the Guardians of the Galaxy. We get to meet Cosmo, we get to meet Kevin Bacon in the MCU, and it honestly was a great character study for Mantis, a character that I had not cared about so far, and I think Pom's performance in here was great, and seeing her and Drax get absolutely plastered was great. I cannot wait for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's my most anticipated comic book property for next year. Now, my number 10 is the Umbrella Academy Season 3. Now, I've watched this season twice. The first time I watched this season, I thought it was perfect. The second time I watched this season, it dragged quite a bit within its pacing, but I still go back and far to say that I think this show works in a perfect manner because of the characters. I love the characters so much in Umbrella Academy. I don't care what the hell they're doing. They could be, fiddle sticking around making French toast, and I would be absolutely all into it because I love hearing the characters banter, talk, and just in general try not to destroy the entire world like they do in every single season. But I think Umbrella Academy Season 3 is great. I can't wait to see what they do in the final season for Season 4, and I hope it's the best one yet. Now, my number 9 is one of the most misunderstood movies on this list, and that is Black Adam. I think it is absolutely... People give this movie way too much shit. As what it does for the DCEU as a whole by introducing not just Black Adam, but also the JSA, making us interested in their backstory, it also provides a great new lore to the word Shazam and the mythology of Shazam itself, which I think is going to give a lot more context to when we go back and rewatch that first Shazam movie, as well as see Shazam Fury of the Gods. I think Black Adam was a badass fucking movie. I wanted a little bit more when it come down to the story itself, to be a little bit honest there, and some of the character development. Specifically, I would have written out that annoying little kid throughout this entire movie. Nothing against his performance, it's just the way they wrote him was terrible, but Dwayne Johnson showed me that he could be Black Adam, and I was not too excited for this movie, but every trailer got me a little bit more excited for it, and once I finally saw the movie, I was like, yeah, this movie is badass as hell. Now, my number 8 is Thor Love and Thunder. This is another misunderstood, mishated movie that I'll repeat once again. If you love Thor Ragnarok, I do not understand how you love Thor Ragnarok but hate this movie, and I'll say the same thing because people say that to me all the time. So maybe we just don't understand each other. But what Taika was trying to do in this movie, it worked for me. I like the themes of grief and trauma that it was trying to touch on, as well as I love Jane Foster in here. I think Natalie Portman is great. I think for once, her and Chris Hemsworth have some chemistry to one another, and there is an emotional crux to it all, and I loved Christian Bale. I've seen this movie a lot, and each time it just grows more and more on me, and the whole meaning of what Love and Thunder is just made me so excited to see. Now, my number 7 is the most surprising thing on this list for me. I knew for majority of the reason that I was probably going to like some of these and love some of these, but this is the one series that I didn't know how to feel about it because I never read the comics for these whatsoever, and the second the season ended, I went and bought every comic that weekend. And that is Netflix's The Sandman. I loved almost all of this show. I almost thought it was perfect. I literally think if it wasn't for the last 3 episodes, which I've actually heard, and a lot of people DM'd me after I'd done my review, that those last 3 episodes, like, this show follows the comics very closely. And those last 3 episodes apparently were the worst for a lot of different reasons. And for me, I think it's a lot of good build-up. So I'm happy I got a season 2 because now I can see maybe where that build-up's supposed to go. I've not read to the comic part of that yet. I've read up to it yet, but I haven't read past that yet. And part of that's because I want to see what they're going to do with season 2 first, but first off, I'm really into the comics, so thank you to everyone who is really much recommending those. But when it comes down to this show, I was completely intrigued from top to bottom with the world, the mythology, all the characters, all the lore, everything that was building up, and it has one of my favorite things in the entire year for comic books, and it's the one episode where Dream is having a friend. Like, he goes and visits and talks to this guy. It's the episode where we talk with his sister Death, and I just thought it was one of the most brilliant pieces of television that I've watched this year, as well as the one at the diner. Those 2 episodes, like, is the reason that The Sandman's so high up on this list, and I can't wait for season 2. Now, my number 6 is The Boys season 3. Now, if you told me after the first 3 episodes of this season that this was going to be so high up on my list, I would have said you're absolutely insane, because when I got the screeners for those, I watched them, and I was like, I do not get the hype on this. I'm not into this season whatsoever, and I was very disappointed because I love The Boys. And after those first 3, once I got into 4, 5, 6, 7, and on, I started to really like this season a little bit more. I feel like sometimes they do shocking moments to have shocking moments to it, and it can kind of take you out of the experience. And while I thought the opening scene with the penis was hilarious, I also thought it was disgusting, and it was shocking to be shocking. And again, it fit within the boys thing, but for some reason, it really did not jive with me going into this. Once I saw Herogasm, though, that was the episode, as insane as that was, the stakes that really led into there, I literally thought they were going to kill Homelander. I thought what they did with that scene was one of the best written and directed scenes in the entire show. And from that point on, completely locked into the show. And it made it one of my favorite TV experiences of this entire year. That is saying a lot. I've seen a lot of freaking TV, but The Boys Season 3 is great. I don't know if it'd be my top 10 shows for the year, because I've seen a lot of shows this year, but The Boys, those 2 episodes in particular are some of the best that I've seen this year. On my number 5, we have Moon Knight, which as a diehard comic book fan, one of my favorite comics reading it growing up was Moon Knight. Every introduction, every time he teamed up, or maybe it was just on himself, I was always fascinated with this character. I love the versions of Moon Knight and Mr. Knight, and I really much just went back through a deep exploration of this character in the comics before the show came out. And the show, while a completely different interpretation of this character, is one that I really dug. I love Oscar Isaac's performance in here. I think it's one of the best performances in the entire MCU as a whole, as well as I love the really much just everything, the mythology that they build up with Khonshu. Ethan Hawke is incredibly scary in here. Lila is a really great supporting character. I want more of Moon Knight. And again, the only reason this Moon Knight is not like at my number 1 or 2 is just for the fact that it only had 6 episodes. This is again a show that needed at least 9 or 10. There was a lot to explore, and sometimes it felt a little bit rushed, but God, did I love Moon Knight. Maybe it's nostalgia, call it for what it is. Now, my number 4 is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. One of the biggest things that I was super worried about this movie was how they were going to handle the Chadwick Boseman loss. And, you know, I get very emotional talking about this movie, so I'm not going to talk about it too much because I've done a lot of content surrounding Wakanda Forever, but I thought it was a beautiful tribute. The way that Ryan Coogler really much put his grieving, his loss, his trauma all into this story feels more than just a comic book movie. This feels like a damn movie. From the cinematography to the score to the production design to the costume design, this movie on a technical level is better than the first Black Panther in almost every single light. I think it's even better directed than the first one that Ryan Coogler had done. But I do like the story a little bit more in the first one, and I think the story for this one, while strong, is held back by certain things where it just needs to build up in the MCU. Specifically, everything that has to do with Everett Ross, I do not think was needed for this movie, and I think it hurts the pacing a bit. I would have liked a little bit more of that runtime to go to Telecon with Namor or even Shuri, because I think Letty Wright is absolutely incredible in here. I think it's one of the best performances in the MCU, as well as Angela Bassett. I mean, she deserves a damn Oscar nomination. I really loved Wakanda Forever. I think it's almost perfect. I just needed a little bit more from it all. Now, coming down at my number 3 is Werewolf by Night. Now, if you watched a couple of my other rankings, Werewolf by Night is actually under Wakanda Forever. But when I was doing this list, I wanted to move it above one more because of what this does for the MCU. 1, it establishes more horror tones. 2, it absolutely brings the supernatural into the MCU in a very unique and great introduction that can really much easily sway in Blade, vampires, and everything like that. The Werewolf's great. Man-Thing is a big standout. Elsa Bloodstone's great. I want more of all those characters. I love Werewolf by Night, and specifically the way that Michael Giacchino directed this thing as an homage to classic horror movies. I love that they went really much R-rating almost with the blood and gore in here. I just thought this short was a ton of fun. And when it comes down to my favorite comic book experiences of this year, this is one of them. At my number 2, this is why I will never count out James Gunn. Because he made my least favorite character in the Suicide Squad into a show, and that is Peacemaker. I also am not a big fan of John Cena as an actor. I thought he was great in the Suicide Squad for what it was, but again, as a lead character, really? And man, was I wrong. This is one of the most entertaining things that I've ever seen this year. One of the best intro sequence songs ever. I loved. When I say loved, I mean I loved this show. I've rewatched it countless times alongside with the Suicide Squad, and I want more from James Gunn in the DC Universe, which thank God now he's going to be one of the co-presidents and really much pushing that into a great way, so I can't wait to see what he does there. But I love what they did with John Cena here. I think it gave a lot more emotional weight to this character of Peacemaker, which makes me care a little bit more about him, about the Suicide Squad. Going in, I understand a little bit more of his motives and why he would make certain choices instead of siding with his actual team. And I think, again, getting a new team shows a little bit more of depth in there. And I, again, was very engaged with this show, to say the least. I think each episode almost got better and better. I laughed. I weirdly got emotional for this show, and I think it's some of the most fun I've had all year long. This is the one thing that I still can't believe this came out this year, but it's one of my favorites. My number one favorite comic book thing of the year is also my number one favorite movie as of right now. There's only like 2-3 more movies that I think even have a chance of knocking this out of my number one, but they have a heavy stake to do that, and that is The Batman. If you followed me for the last couple of years, you know that The Batman has been my most anticipated movie of all time. Batman's my favorite superhero of all time in the DC universe. Robert Pattinson's one of my favorite actors working right now. Matt Reeves is one of my favorite directors working right now. I love the stylistic approach that they're going for this. They announced it was 3 hours. That gets me excited. It's an epic. This movie had everything I wanted it to be and more. And it had high expectations, and it didn't exceed them because my expectations were like higher than you could ever imagine, but it met them. And I think this is not just a perfect Batman movie. I think it is one of the best comic book movies ever made. I am so excited to see what Matt Reeves does more into this world. I think Robert Pattinson is an excellent Batman. I'm holding my sway on Bruce Wayne, though, because I need a little bit more of him as Wayne. Andy Serkis is a great Alfred. Matt Reeves directed the hell out of this. I love this world that he built up. I love this mystery that he built up. And again, holy shit, this movie is perfect. It is a masterpiece of itself, and it's everything that I wanted it to be. And with all that said, that's my favorite thing from 2022 for comic books. So thank you so much again for watching this, guys. You guys are really all the best. Thank you so much for tuning in. I got one more comic book video for the year, and I think that's going to be my phase for, like, ranking all the phases for the Marvel Universe. So make sure to look out for that. But of course, lots of movies and TV reviews and really much top 10 lists, end of the year lists all coming up soon. So if you're into that all and you love being a geek, this is certainly the right place for you. Hit that like and subscribe button. And of course, until next time, stay classy.